A little while ago, I was asked to make a little guide here on how to look at Warcraft logs, how to look at your logs and analyze them so that you know how can you improve. And so that's what we're going to do. But first, I got to tell you about something that I woke up to this morning that had me laughing hysterically. If you don't care about the funny thing, you can just skip ahead. But I hope this makes your day. So yesterday I posted this video. It was basically a collection of short stories, if you will, little happenings in Raid, funny, wholesome things that just encapsulate classic WoW, for me anyways. And one of those was where one of the guild members, they had really bad internet, and it's a Spanish-speaking player, and we're saying like, no, you got to stay here. We're going to go through the gauntlet, because if you disconnect in the gauntlet, it's not going to be good. But he's like, no, my pantalones are, I have the SR on the leg plates of Carnage. And so we're all laughing, and he's like, okay, we're going. And of course he DC'd in the gauntlet. And anyways, the pants dropped, and that's the screenshot here. But this screenshot was made by a different guild member. He makes a lot of really clever, if you will, memes and videos and really funny things. He just edits it all himself. He's great in Photoshop and video editing and that kind of stuff. So that's my guild member, longtime guild member, Trialson. I woke up this morning to this image here, and it was a hoot, man. So basically, he made a fake video as if he was posting a video. This fucking piss gobbler used my artwork for his video thumbnail without attribution. And he just put pictures of me, and there's a little child statue peeing into my mouth. You can see it right there. You can see the stream. It's peeing into my mouth, and it's too funny, man. Too funny. I just laughed and laughed and laughed this morning. He got me good. And then a different guild member posted this image of me holding my this thing I made here for the other video, AoE shouting for dummies. And then someone else posted this picture, which like they put that image into AI. There I am, cartoon me holding AoE shouting for dummies by Dwar Hard. It doesn't say Dwarf Lord, it says by Dwar Hard. So I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you found that as funny as I did, because I was just laughing hysterically. My girlfriend's like, what's so funny? And I was just laughing. I couldn't even talk. So I was crying laughing, but let's get into Warcraft logs, how to look at the logs. And we're going to go over warrior, then rogue, and then mage. We're going to primarily look at damage dealing. We're going to cover DPS in this video because it's a lot more cut and dry to look at DPS logs. So first, of course, we can find the log that we're going to look for by either typing our character or the guild, right? So, I mean, I could go like target dummies and find the guild, and then we would find the report here, and then click that. Or maybe there would be a link in like the Discord or something. So we had a raid last night. We killed 10 bosses. We had an issue with some wipes. So this is not a perfect raid, we had some crazy wipes happen and lost a lot of world buffs. But we can still look at this somewhat monkish tier log and kind of compare and look at damages here. So we're going to look at warriors first. And it's like, okay, so we have our lowest damage warrior, who's kind of a trash tank with a 663 DPS, and then our higher DPS warriors who don't do any tanking, in the 800 range. So let's just take a look here at casts. So we click the cast button, and then we're going to look at certain abilities. So the abilities that you want to look at for warrior are your Bloodthirst cast. So we could just left click it, or we can right click, open new tab for Bloodthirst. Then we can look at Blood Fury as a cooldown. We can look at Cleave. Open that in a new tab. Sunder. We want to look at Sunders. Oops, I didn't mean to. Oh my gosh. I don't like what I saw there at all. What did I just see? Holy moly. Someone was very low on Sunders, so they're going to get reprimanded from me now. Okay, and we also just want to look at our general active uptime. So here we can see that Shad Hero and Cheat Day, Solar Cutie, they have active uptimes of around 75%. That's really good. Whereas most of the warriors are having pretty decent uptime, but we have like a rogue down here with 63% uptime. So that means that 10% less uptime. 10% of the time they're just kind of like AFKing, not hitting stuff. So anyways, we're going to look at Bloodthirsts. Now, warriors want to Bloodthirst on cooldown, and this guy here, he actually disconnected, Rage Starved and DC'd, so we can't really use him as a number. But we can do, and actually these warriors, they're not horrible. So Grep has 255, Duck Rage has 262. We want more than that. So we can see that our main tank has 364. He's just slamming that Bloodthirst. But at least we would hope for the rest of the DPS warriors and all the other warriors to have at least 300. And so we can see that, Grep and Duck Rage and all these people here, they're just a little bit lower than what we want. And it kind of, it doesn't always 100% translate to lower damage, because Cheat Day, even though he's low on Bloodthirst cast, he was one of the higher damages, right? But these are just parts of the puzzle. Then we're going to look at Blood Fury. Now, people roll Orc for a reason, right? This is one of those reasons. So TGA did a great job casting 20 Blood Furies. Last time I gave a VOD review, right? Basically, or not a VOD review, but a raid review. Every week I go over the logs and I post it in the Discord and I say, hey, you didn't do a lot of these casts, da 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 da. I give feedback to all of my raiders. And I told TGA, you're really low on Blood Fury. And you rolled Orc for this reason. Of course, also the axe skill. And he took that to heart and he cast a lot of them. So did Stabra. I told them, like, you're really low on Blood Fury. Use it. You know what I'm saying? And they did. That's good. But some of them are still very low. Now, Crush is a tank, so there's not a lot of opportunities for Crush to use it. But same with Goron. He's a tank, so there's not a lot of opportunities for him to use it either. But Zugget is a DPS warrior, and he didn't use it that many times. So these are areas we can look to improve upon. Then we have Cleave. Cleave is a really important one for DPS warriors. Remember how I said that Cheat Day was really lowish on his Bloodthirst casts? He's cleaving like crazy. And Cleave is going to increase your damage a lot. Very strongly correlated to more damage. So if you're low on Cleave, that's going to be a problem. And let me actually, really quickly here, let me open up a different log that I gave a raid review for. And so here's a warrior that is doing 18 cleaves, 32 cleaves as a DPS warrior. That is just wild. And then we have our top warriors, and I'm a tank. There's me, a tank, using 217 cleaves. Usually tanks don't cleave that much, but even I'm cleaving because it makes me do more damage. Once I have threat, I cleave. And so we have these warriors doing really low cleaves. And if we look at the damage that they do, here's a warrior, and he never lost world buffs, Cites. And I've given him advice. less than 400 DPS. You know, he's the lowest DPS in the raid. And then there's me as the main tank doing 466. You know what I'm saying? So basically, that's just the results. You're going to have really low damage if you're not cleaving. But let's move along from cleave, because sunder is important too. Because when you sunder, what that's going to do is it's going to reduce the armor and make you do more damage. So when something is fully sundered, it's like 30% more damage done. When it's sundered, Curse of Wreck, Fairy Fire, it's like 40% or so more damage. Cheat Day did 1 sunder on a Naxxramas follower. That is insanity. In freaking sanity. So I'm going to have a one-on-one conversation with them and say, hey, what is up with that? Everyone else's sunders are looking fine. Absolutely fine. Now, remember, sunders, we want to look at effective sunders. So I'm going to show you a formula. I'll put it in the description. But this formula, what it's going to do is... and check this out. Now, Cheat Day's sunders are gone because that sunder he did, it was a sunder on a mob that already had 5 sunders. So it was a useless sunder. Crazy. So Kunigandi here, 53 sunders. If we get rid of this script, we can see he has 59. So that means 53 of his 59 sunders were on a mob that had 4 or less sunders, right? That's really good. That is really nice, effective sundering. So we don't want to over sunder. I can go back to this log here, and we'll go to sunders, and we have a warrior who's doing over sundering. Check this out. Oh wait, no, it was... I'm thinking of a different log, but even this is too much sundering. Here is a DPS warrior doing... Well, he was tanking a little bit, like there's sunders on Blamo, but 264 sunders, that's way too many sunders for a DPS warrior. Like, these are all DPS warriors. So many sunders. Crazy. We can expect, like, Zet to do sunders, like he's, like, one of the tanks, but Gucci's low with 12, so don't want to over sunder, but don't want to do too little sunders. You got to be in that sweet spot. So that's warrior, basically. There are other things we can look at. We can look at intercept casts. You know, that'll help with their uptime. So if we look at intercept, well, we don't expect these Fury Prot warriors to do much intercepting, but intercepting does help with your uptime. It's not completely... it's not the most important thing. You know, we got Blood Rage we can look at. So... popping a lot of Blood Rage is good because it's free rage. So another thing we want to look at with warriors is Death Wish cast. So Grep has 20 Death Wishes. Death Wishes were decent, but some people like Kunigande could do more, right? 11 Death Wishes as a DPS warrior versus other DPS warriors doing 20. So you really want to maximize your Death Wish usage. So some people could definitely do a bit more, but that's not horrible. Now let's look at rogues. So here we have Psychosis doing 713 and Gank Your DMF doing 429. That's a big difference in damage. Big difference in damage here. So what we can do is, I'm going to just backspace those, and then we'll look at... we're going to look at backstab. So we have 2 dagger rogues. Psychosis had 419 and Gank Your DMF had 341 backstabs. That's a big difference. That is a big difference. That's 80 backstabs. And backstab is a high energy ability, so it takes a long time to get the energy to do a backstab. So I told Gank, you got to do more, and he is doing more, but he needs to do more than that. Another thing we look at with rogues is Blade Flurry. So we have Psychosis and Stabra doing... Oh, I don't want to go to damage done. I want to go to casts. Oops. We'll go to casts for Blade Flurry. Oops, that's Blood Fury. So Gank Your DMF did essentially half of the amount of Blade Flurries. It's a 2-minute cooldown. You got to use it a lot. It's great on cleave and single target. And it correlates to doing more damage. We also want to look at Adrenaline Rush. So this is a bit more centered. It's not too much of a spread. We can also look at Sinister Strike for a rogue, because some of these guys are like a sword rogue. So here is Stabra doing 810 and Roachclip doing 686. Like, that is just a huge difference. So that just means that Roach and Gank Your DMF, they need to work on being in there, hitting those buttons. Lastly, we can look at mages, and it's mages are sometimes a little bit trickier to look at. A big thing is the ignite. So how we're going to look at ignite, let's just use let's try and find a let's see. Let's look at Maxina, and we're going to go to casts and timelines. And what we want to do is we want to look at the opener of the mages. And so, first of all, it's very important to have a designated opener on bosses for mages. You're going to go Scorch, Pyroblast. The reason is that you do 2 Scorches each mage to build up the 5 stacks of improved Scorch. Then you're going to do a Pyroblast because you're going to have an ignite, but it's a weak Scorch ignite, right? The way that ignite works is every crit makes a dot, and the 5 crits contribute to that dot. So if you have 5 really small crits, you're going to have a really small dot. If you have 5 really big crits, you can carry that dot the entire fight. And so you want to crit with either a fireball or a pyroblast. But if you've already contributed scorches to that ignite, it's called a scorch ignite, and it's a low damage ignite. So you need to wait for that ignite to drop it. The ignite lasts 4 seconds, which means you want to go scorch, pyro, or scorch, frostbolt, fireball. Or maybe you can go scorch, wait like a second, and then start the fireball and have it drop the ignite. But what we see here is Leatherello goes scorch, fireball. Buzzbags goes scorch, fireball. Tisha is going scorch, pyro. And then ChemD, you can see that they start casting very late. They are not casting at all. Tisha is the first one to start casting, with Buzzbags and Leatherello slowly after. But ChemD, what's he doing? He's moving into position, and then he casts Berserking. Then he casts Talisman of Ephemeral Power, and then he's finally casting a Scorch. But look, he has cast a Scorch when these guys are doing Fireball. And so if this Scorch was a crit, it would have rolled that weak Scorch ignite. So let's take a look. All right, let's just take a look at this. So we see Tisha doing their Scorch. Buzzbags has a Scorch, but the fire vulnerability resisted. That can happen. Leatherello does their Scorch, as we saw. Tisha is doing their second Scorch, and we can see it's a crit, right? So we have our first crit. That'll start the ignite. And then we have another resist from Buzzbag's fire vulnerability. And then Leatherello gets a Scorch crit, which is at 6 seconds. And that Tisha's was at 5 seconds. So now, that ignite is still rolling. We don't see any casts for a little bit. So here's the ignite tick. Now Buzzbags scorches again. Remember, Buzzbags did 3 scorches, and so now that's a crit. So now they're rolling the ignite, continuing to roll that ignite. ChemD finally gets in position and scorches, and that also is a crit. And so it's like now we're not gonna have a good ignite. There's the ignite tick. Really weak. 1300. You can have 5000 damage ignite ticks. Let's see what's happening here. Lelorello fireballs. So that's a crit, right? And then let's see what the next cast is. So still, Tisha's ignite is ticking for really weak, right? So what we can do is we can go abilities, and let's look at ignite. And so you can see that for the first 20 seconds, due to the improper mage opener, we have a lot of weak ignites. But because of fireballs, now what happens is we're getting fireball crits, and they do build at 30 seconds at ignite, and then Buzzbags, and then it builds a new, and they build a new ignite. But the first ignite is really bad. Now let's just take a look at a different log here, and we can see here, now this is a much quicker fight, but we can see that the first 7 seconds is that scorch ignite, and then we're using actual spells and we're getting a proper ignite. Then there's the web, AoE stun, and then we build a new ignite. So here we have the scorch ignite only for a couple seconds, but over here we have the scorch ignite for 20 seconds. So that's just an example of a bad mage opener. So the most important thing for mages is ignite on the bosses, because that's why they're being brought. We can also look in general at a mage damage done, their damage profile. So Lelorello, we can look at their fireball casts in general. We can go casts, fireball, because you do want a lot of fireball casts. Where's fireball? So Lelorello, he's just pressing that button. If you do more fireballs, you do more damage. And so Tisha and ChemD, they got to work on doing more fireballs. Now, sometimes the difficulty of a mage doing fireballs is a mob dies before the fireball even hits. So you gotta really be aggressive. As the tank is running in, your fireball almost needs to be right behind the tank going in. You can't have the tank put 2 sunders up and then you're like, okay, I'm casting fireball. The mob's going to be dead before that fireball even hits. So mages have to be somewhat aggressive. It's a dangerous game to play because they're so squishy. What am I doing G for? We want Scorch. Again, Scorch is a good thing to cast on trash. Maybe you can get 1 fireball off, but you try for the second fireball and it dies before the second fireball. So you do fireball Scorch into maybe a fire blast or something, right? So we also want to look at things like Blast Wave. You want to definitely be using that whenever you can on AoE, because you can get a well, it's just good AoE, then you get a crit. So again, Lelorello 38 blast waves, but ChemD 26 blast waves. So we need to do better, more blast waves. And finally, we have Arcane Explosion. One of these will be rank 1, one of them will be rank 2, or max rank, whatever. So again, Tisha very low on Arcane Explosions. Lelorello doing a lot of Arcane Explosions. And Arcane Explosion and Spiderwing, you'll do a lot of AoE damage. A lot of AoE damage potential there. So we've basically gone over warrior, rogue, and mage, the prime DPS. We don't really care about hunter and warlock or anything like that, but I hope that gives you an idea of kind of what to look at with these different DPS classes. Hope it helps. That's just a crash course on logs. You know, there's so much you can do, but play around with logs, you know, in the cast and in damage taken, damage done, all sorts of stuff, you know, timelines, events, and see what it all means. Okay, hope it helps. Hope it was useful to you. If you enjoyed the video, drop me a sub and a comment. Catch me live on my Twitch channel, Dwarf Lord TV, to connect with me or say hi to me in game on any of my characters. Dwarf Lord out.
And they say that the Dwarf Lord could save us. I'm not gonna pave here and wait. I'll hold on to the beard of the Dwarf Lord. Watch as we heroic leap away.